You think you know everything, Judge? He's my son. I own his future completely. You didn't raise a son, you created a victim, and today your lies end.
The moment Judge Judy held up that single piece of paper, every person in the courtroom knew they were about to witness something that would haunt them forever. The document trembling in her hand wasn't just evidence. It was proof of the most twisted, calculated, soul-destroying betrayal a mother could inflict on her own child. What happened in the next 23 minutes would expose a fraud so evil, so methodically planned, that it would shatter everything you thought you knew about family love. This wasn't just identity theft. This was a mother who looked her son in the eyes every single day for 8 years while systematically destroying his entire future, stealing his dreams one credit card at a time, and sleeping peacefully at night knowing she had turned her own child's life into a financial nightmare he couldn't escape. The courtroom camera captured the exact moment when Daniel Martinez, a 26-year-old man who had worked 2 jobs since he was 14 to help his struggling mother, discovered that the woman who gave him life had spent the last 8 years stealing everything he had worked for. But here's what makes this story absolutely devastating and why it exploded to over 70 million views across every platform. The twist that Judge Judy uncovered wasn't just about money. It was about a mother who had been playing a game so sick, so manipulative, that she had turned her own children against each other, destroyed their relationship for 2 years, and nearly succeeded in making them hate each other forever, all while she sat back and watched the chaos she created with a smile on her face. And the evidence Judge Judy discovered during her private investigation, the smoking gun that would send this woman to prison and make her the most hated mother in America, was something so shocking that when it was revealed in that courtroom, even the bailiff, a man who had seen everything, had to look away. Before we show you the exact moment this evil mother's entire world came crashing down in the most public and humiliating way possible, I need you to understand something. Daniel Martinez wasn't just a victim. He was the perfect son. The kind of son every mother dreams of having. While his friends were out partying in high school, Daniel was working the closing shift at a grocery store and then waking up at 5 in the morning to stock shelves at a warehouse before school started. Every single paycheck he gave half to his mother because she told him they were struggling. When he turned 18 and got his first real job with benefits, he gave her even more. When his mother said she needed help with rent, he paid it. When she said the car was breaking down, he covered the repairs. When she claimed she couldn't afford her medications, he handed over hundreds of dollars without question. He trusted her completely because she was his mother, and in his mind, mothers don't lie to their children. Mothers protect. Mothers sacrifice. Mothers love unconditionally. Daniel believed this with every fiber of his being, right up until the day he walked into a mortgage broker's office with his fiancée, ready to buy their first home together, ready to start building the future he had worked so hard for, and watched the broker's face change from friendly to confused to deeply concerned as she pulled up his credit report on her computer screen. The number that appeared on that screen was 487. Daniel's credit score, which should have been over 750 based on his responsible financial history, had been destroyed. Obliterated. Turned into something so catastrophically bad that the mortgage broker actually asked him if he had recently filed for bankruptcy or if he was recovering from a drug addiction that had led to financial collapse. Daniel sat there in stunned silence, staring at page after page of accounts he had never opened, credit cards he had never applied for, loans he had never taken out, and collections agencies pursuing debts he knew nothing about. $87,000 in debt. 14 credit cards. 3 personal loans. Multiple utility accounts in his name at addresses he had never lived at. A car loan for a Mercedes he had never seen. Late payments, missed payments, maxed out accounts, and a pattern of financial destruction that painted him as either a con artist or someone with a severe spending addiction. His fiancée's parents had already been skeptical about the wedding, and when they found out about his credit situation, they told their daughter she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Daniel lost a promotion at work when his employer ran a routine background check and found the financial chaos attached to his name. Collection agencies started calling him 15 times a day. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. His entire life was falling apart and he had absolutely no idea why. Now, if you've ever had your identity stolen, if you've ever felt that gut-wrenching violation of someone using your name to destroy your life, I need you to drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button, because what Judge Judy uncovered about who was behind Daniel's nightmare will absolutely destroy you emotionally. The person who did this to him wasn't some stranger. It wasn't some hacker. It was someone he loved more than anyone else in the world. Daniel spent 3 months living in absolute hell before he finally discovered the truth, and when that truth revealed itself, it shattered him so completely that he spent an entire week unable to speak to anyone. He had hired a private investigator with money he borrowed from his fiancée's family, money he hated taking because it felt like charity, but he was desperate. The investigator started pulling threads, requesting documents, cross-referencing addresses, and tracking down signature samples. Every single fraudulent account had one thing in common. They were all sent to the same address: his mother's townhouse. The address Daniel had been paying rent for without even knowing it, because 3 years ago his mother had told him she was behind on payments and needed help, so he set up an automatic transfer from his bank account. He thought he was helping with her rent. In reality, he was paying the full mortgage on a property that was legally in his name, a property his mother had purchased using his credit, his income information, and his forged signature. When the investigator showed Daniel the evidence, when he laid out the credit card statements with charges at spas and restaurants and luxury stores, when he showed him the handwriting analysis that proved his mother had been forging his signature for years, Daniel didn't believe it at first. He couldn't believe it. His brain literally rejected the information because accepting it meant accepting that his entire relationship with his mother had been a lie. He went to her house that night, walked up to her door with the folder of evidence in his shaking hands, and confronted her. He expected tears, shock, maybe an explanation about identity theft affecting both of them. Instead, his mother looked him dead in the eyes and said the words that would haunt him forever. She said, "You're being manipulated by that girl you're marrying. She's trying to turn you against your own family. You've always been weak-minded, Daniel. This is why I never trusted you with important decisions." Then she closed the door in his face. That was the moment Daniel realized his mother wasn't a victim. She was a predator, and he had been her prey since the day he turned 18. Linda Martinez walked into Judge Judy's courtroom on that Tuesday morning looking like she had just come from a country club brunch. Her designer handbag, a Gucci that retailed for $3,000, hung perfectly on her arm. Her jewelry sparkled under the courtroom lights, real diamonds and gold that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her nails were freshly manicured, a French tip that screamed expensive salon, and her hair was styled in that way that only comes from regular appointments with professionals. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences in her entire life, someone who had spent years manipulating people and getting away with it. When she sat down at the defendant's table, she didn't look nervous or ashamed. She looked annoyed, like this entire proceeding was beneath her, like she was being inconvenienced by having to show up and deal with her ungrateful son's delusions. Her lawyer, a sleazy-looking man in a suit that had seen better days, leaned over to whisper something in her ear, and she smiled. Actually smiled. Like this was all just a minor bump in the road that would be resolved quickly so she could get back to her comfortable life. Daniel sat across from her at the plaintiff's table, and the contrast between mother and son couldn't have been more stark. Daniel wore a simple button-down shirt and khakis, the kind of clothes someone wears when they're trying to look professional on a limited budget. His eyes were red and swollen from months of sleepless nights and stress-induced anxiety. His hands trembled slightly as he organized his documents, page after page of evidence that represented 3 years of his life spent investigating his own mother. His fiancée sat in the gallery directly behind him, her hand reaching forward to squeeze his shoulder in support, and you could see in her face that she had been crying too. This wasn't just about money for Daniel. This was about everything he had believed about family, about love, about the one person who was supposed to protect him above everyone else. Next to him sat his younger sister, 23-year-old Sophia Martinez, who had flown in from Chicago specifically for this trial. Sophia hadn't spoken to Daniel in over 2 years, and the reason for their estrangement was sitting right there at the defendant's table, smiling like she had already won. Judge Judy entered the courtroom with that signature walk that every regular viewer recognized immediately, the walk that said someone was about to get destroyed. She had stayed up late the previous night going through every single page of evidence in this case, making phone calls to credit bureaus and banks, pulling strings with contacts she had built over decades in the legal system. This wasn't just another case to her. Something about Linda Martinez had triggered every instinct Judge Judy had developed over 35 years of dealing with manipulators and con artists. She sat down at her bench, adjusted her glasses, and opened the file that would expose Linda Martinez's entire criminal enterprise to the world. Judge Judy looked up from the file, her eyes moving slowly from Daniel to Linda, taking in every detail of their body language, their expressions, the way Linda sat with her arms crossed in defiant confidence while her son looked like he was about to collapse from emotional exhaustion. The silence in that courtroom stretched for what felt like an eternity before Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Mrs. Martinez, you're being sued by your son Daniel for $87,000 in fraudulent debt, identity theft, and emotional damages. He claims you've been systematically stealing his identity for 8 years, destroying his credit, ruining his financial future, and doing it all while he was giving you money every single month to help with what he thought were your legitimate struggles. How do you plead to these accusations?" Linda Martinez didn't miss a beat. She had rehearsed this performance, practiced the victim routine until it was perfect, and now she launched into it with the skill of someone who had been manipulating people her entire life. "Your Honor, with all due respect, my son is confused. I'm a single mother who raised 2 children completely alone after their father abandoned us when they were babies. I worked 3 jobs, I sacrificed everything, I gave them every opportunity one never had." The tears started flowing right on cue, perfectly timed drops sliding down her cheeks as she dabbed at them with a tissue she had conveniently ready in her hand. "Daniel has always been impressionable, Your Honor. Always eager to please, always looking for approval. About a year ago he started dating this girl, this woman who has never liked me, who has been poisoning him against his own family. She's the one who put these ideas in his head. She's the one who's trying to separate him from his mother because she wants to control him completely." Linda turned in her seat to look directly at Daniel's fiancée in the gallery, pointing at her with dramatic accusation. "That woman right there is destroying my family, Your Honor. She's manipulating my son into believing I would ever hurt him. I'm his mother. I gave him life. I changed his diapers, I stayed up with him when he was sick, I worked myself to exhaustion to provide for him. And this is how he repays me? By dragging me into court, humiliating me on national television, treating me like I'm some kind of criminal?" Judge Judy's expression didn't change during this entire performance. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded on the bench, watching Linda with the kind of analytical stare that had made thousands of liars squirm over the years. When Linda finally finished her theatrical display and sat back in her chair with a satisfied look, like she had just delivered the closing argument in a murder trial, Judge Judy let the silence hang for 3 full seconds before she spoke again. "Are you finished?" Linda blinked, momentarily thrown off by the cold response. Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted you to understand the full situation." Judge Judy nodded slowly. "Good. Now let me tell you what I understand. I understand that you're wearing a $3,000 handbag and approximately $5,000 worth of jewelry. I understand that your nails are professionally done, probably $60 minimum every 2 weeks. I understand that according to your own financial disclosure, you reported an annual income of $28,000 last year, which makes me very curious about how you afford a lifestyle that suggests you're making 6 figures. Would you like to explain that to me, Mrs. Martinez?" Linda's lawyer jumped in quickly, clearly trying to redirect before his client said something damaging. "Your Honor, my client's financial situation isn't relevant to these accusations. We're here because her son is making false claims about identity theft, and we have evidence that he gave his mother permission to use his credit for family emergencies." Judge Judy's head turned toward the lawyer with the speed of a predator spotting prey. "Counselor, I'm going to stop you right there. Don't tell me what's relevant in my courtroom. I've been doing this since before you passed the bar exam, and I can smell fraud from a mile away. Now sit down and let your client answer my question." The lawyer sat down immediately, and Judge Judy returned her attention to Linda. "I'm waiting, Mrs. Martinez. Where did the money come from for your expensive lifestyle?" Linda's confidence was starting to crack now, small fractures appearing in her perfect victim facade. I save money carefully, Your Honor. I'm very frugal with my spending. These items were gifts from friends and family." Judge Judy pulled out a document from her file. "Really? Because I have credit card statements here showing purchases at Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, luxury spas, high-end restaurants, all made in the last 6 months alone totaling over $40,000. Were those gifts too?" Before we show you exactly how Judge Judy demolished every single lie Linda Martinez told in that courtroom, I need you to do something for me right now. If you think this mother deserves to be exposed for what she did, Hit that like button so hard your screen cracks. Comment justice served if you believe Daniel deserves every penny he's asking for. Because what Judge Judy pulls out next, the evidence that destroys Linda's story completely, is something so damning that Linda's lawyer actually tried to leave the courtroom. Don't you dare skip ahead because the next revelation will make your jaw hit the floor. Linda's face went pale as Judge Judy spread out the credit card statements across her bench, each one highlighting purchases that told a story of luxury and excess while Linda had been crying poverty to her own son. But Judge Judy wasn't done, not even close, because what she pulled out next made the entire courtroom gasp in collective shock. Mrs. Martinez, I want you to look at the young woman sitting next to your son. That's your daughter Sophia, correct? Linda glanced over at Sophia, and for the first time, genuine fear flickered across her face. Yes, that's my daughter. We're not on speaking terms right now because Daniel has turned her against me too. Judge Judy's expression hardened into something absolutely terrifying. No, Mrs. Martinez. Your children aren't speaking to each other because you've been playing them against each other for 2 years. You've been telling Daniel that Sophia stole his identity. You've been telling Sophia that Daniel destroyed her credit. You've orchestrated their estrangement to cover up the fact that you've been stealing from both of them simultaneously. The courtroom erupted in shocked whispers. Sophia stood up from her seat, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her mother with pure betrayal in her eyes. Daniel turned to look at his sister, and in that moment, you could see the pieces clicking together in his mind, the sudden horrible realization that their mother had been lying to both of them, turning them into enemies so they would never compare notes and discover the truth. Judge Judy raised her hand for silence and the courtroom immediately quieted. Sophia Martinez, age 23, living in Chicago, working as a nursing assistant, has $34,000 in fraudulent debt attached to her name. Credit cards she never opened, a personal loan she never took out, utility accounts at addresses she's never lived at. When she discovered this debt 18 months ago and called home crying, asking her family what was happening, do you know what you told her, Mrs. Martinez? You told her that Daniel had stolen her identity because he was jealous of her success. You told her that her own brother, the person who had protected her their entire childhood, had betrayed her. Linda tried to speak, but Judge Judy cut her off with a voice that could have shattered glass. Don't you dare interrupt me. I'm not finished. Sophia believed you because you're her mother, and children want to believe their mothers love them and would never hurt them. So Sophia stopped speaking to Daniel. She blocked his number. She refused to see him at family gatherings. Meanwhile, you told Daniel that Sophia was angry because she had racked up debt and was trying to blame him for her own irresponsible spending. You told him that Sophia had always been jealous of him, that she was vindictive and cruel. And Daniel, being the good son he is, believed you too. For 2 years, your children have been estranged, heartbroken, thinking the worst of each other, while you sat back and continued stealing from both of them, knowing they would never talk to each other long enough to figure out what you had done. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice dropping to something low and dangerous. That isn't just fraud, Mrs. Martinez. That's psychological warfare against your own children. That's evil. Linda's lawyer was frantically whispering to her, probably telling her to stay quiet, to not say anything that could be used against her, but Linda's narcissism wouldn't let her stay silent. She stood up, her face red with anger, all pretense of the struggling victim completely gone now, replaced by pure rage at being exposed. You don't understand what it's like, she screamed at Judge Judy, her voice shaking with fury. You sit up there in your robe, judging everyone, but you don't know what it's like to struggle, to have nothing, to watch everyone else have the life you deserve. My ex-husband left me with 2 kids and no money. I worked garbage jobs for years while he moved on and started a new family. My kids had good credit, perfect credit, and I had nothing. They were young, they didn't need it yet, and I needed it to survive. I was going to pay it back eventually. It was supposed to be temporary. The courtroom sat in stunned silence at this confession. Linda's lawyer had his head in his hands, knowing his client had just admitted to everything on national television. But Linda wasn't done because narcissists can never stop talking once they start justifying their actions. And you know what? They owed me. I gave them life. I raised them. I sacrificed my body, my youth, my opportunities for them. Daniel was always my favorite, always the good boy, always trying to make me happy. He was so easy to manipulate, so desperate for my approval. One little lie about struggling with rent and he'd hand over hundreds of dollars without question. He never even checked where the money was going. Sophia was harder, more suspicious, but I managed her too. They owed me for giving up my life to raise them, and I was just collecting what was mine. Judge Judy let her finish, let her hang herself with her own words, before she delivered the blow that would destroy Linda Martinez forever. Mrs. Martinez, you just confessed to identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy on camera in front of millions of viewers. I hope it was worth it. Judge Judy opened a folder that she had kept separate from all the other evidence, a folder that was thicker than everything else combined, and when Linda saw it, the color drained from her face completely. During my investigation into this case, I made several phone calls. I contacted the credit bureaus, the banks, the lending institutions. I also contacted someone you probably hoped would never get involved, Mrs. Martinez. I called your elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dorothy Chin, the 82-year-old woman who lives 2 doors down from you and who you've been visiting regularly for the past 3 years, bringing her groceries and helping with her bills out of the goodness of your heart. Except you weren't helping her at all, were you? You were stealing her identity too. The courtroom exploded in gasps and shocked whispers. Linda grabbed onto the table to steady herself as her legs seemed to buckle beneath her. Judge Judy continued, her voice growing colder with each word. Mrs. Chin has $16,000 in fraudulent debt that she discovered last month when her grandson tried to help her refinance her home. She's on a fixed income of $1,200 a month from Social Security. You befriended a vulnerable elderly woman, gained her trust, got access to her personal information, and you stole from her just like you stole from your own children. The total amount of fraud you've committed is $137,000 across 3 victims. This isn't civil court anymore, Mrs. Martinez. This is a criminal enterprise. Judge Judy gestured to the bailiff, who opened the courtroom door to reveal 2 police detectives standing in the hallway waiting. I contacted the district attorney's office during our lunch break and provided them with all the evidence I've compiled. These detectives have a warrant for your arrest on 47 counts of identity theft, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. You're not just losing this case today, Mrs. Martinez. You're losing your freedom. Linda collapsed into her chair, her face buried in her hands, sobbing hysterically, but these weren't the manipulative tears she had cried earlier. These were the tears of someone who had just realized that the life they had built on lies was crumbling into dust. Her lawyer was packing his briefcase, clearly preparing to abandon ship before he got dragged down with her. Judge Judy wasn't finished. My ruling is as follows. Judgment for the plaintiff Daniel Martinez in the amount of $87,000. Judgment for Sophia Martinez in the amount of $34,000. An additional $50,000 in punitive damages to be split between both children for the emotional and psychological abuse you inflicted by turning them against each other. Total judgment, $171,000. Furthermore, I am ordering immediate restraining orders preventing you from contacting either of your children or Mrs. Chin ever again. You are to have 0 contact, 0 communication, 0 interaction with any of your victims for the rest of your life. Daniel and Sophia were holding each other, both of them crying, 2 years of pain and misunderstanding dissolving in that moment of shared relief and justice. Judge Judy's expression softened slightly as she looked at them. Daniel, Sophia, what your mother did to you is the ultimate betrayal, and I want you both to understand something very clearly. You are not responsible for her actions. You are not bad children for holding her accountable. Real mothers protect their children's futures. Your mother stole yours. But you have each other now, and that's real family. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Love does. Sacrifice does. Go rebuild your lives together and never let anyone make you feel guilty for demanding justice. The siblings nodded, unable to speak through their tears. Judge Judy turned her attention back to Linda one final time. Mrs. Martinez, you told me your children owed you for giving them life. But parenthood isn't a transaction. It's not an investment you get to cash in on later. You don't get to destroy your children's futures and call it collecting a debt. I've sentenced actual criminals who showed more remorse than you've shown today. The detectives will take you into custody now. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck with a sound that echoed through the stunned courtroom like thunder. Within hours of the episode airing, the clip had gone viral across every social media platform on Earth. 70 million views in the first week. 100 million by the end of the month. The hashtag #EvilMomExposed trended worldwide for days. Linda Martinez's mugshot became the face of family fraud across the internet. She ultimately pleaded guilty to avoid trial and was sentenced to 6 years in state prison with full restitution ordered. She lost everything, her home, her car, her freedom, all because she believed her children owed her their futures. Daniel and Sophia rebuilt their relationship and both got married within a year, walking each other down the aisle since their mother would never have that honor. They started a foundation helping victims of family identity theft, and their story became a case study in law schools across the country. If this story of justice restored your faith in the legal system, smash that subscribe button right now and hit the notification bell because karma always wins in the end. Comment justice served if you believe Linda got exactly what she deserved. Share this video with anyone who needs to see what happens when evil meets accountability. Remember, family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who protects you, not who destroys you. This has been the story of how two siblings found each other again after their mother tried to tear them apart forever, and how Judge Judy made sure that evil wearing the mask of motherhood finally faced the consequences it deserved.